Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to a special edition of Cooking with Sylv Mac. Today I am drinking coffee because it's early in the morning. But I wanted to go over and tell you exactly how I did my gumbo. I cooked my seafood, chicken, and sausage gumbo last night. It's on the stove right now. I just brought it out of the refrigerator. But I wanted to emphasize that there are two things that this video is going to show you. One, it's going to show you how to make the roux. And actually, instead of making the roux with the butter and flour or oil and flour, I decided to use duck fat and some bacon grease and flour. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. The other thing that I wanted to make sure that to emphasize is the technique that my mother taught me on how to cook each protein individually and how to get the most flavor out of it. So let me show you the finished product. Oh, it's heavy. All right, so this is the finished product, and you can see it's loaded with chicken, 2 types of sausage, shrimp, scallops, and I didn't have crab legs, so instead I found some lobster claws, so I thought that would be good. I might go to the store today and see if I can also find some crab legs. I also put ham in my gumbo, and I originally put 2 pounds of shrimp in there, and I felt like that was a little skimpy. So I've got another pound of shrimp that I'm gonna put in there. And I like to use the really big shrimp. So this is the 16, 20 count shrimp. And I'm gonna go on and cook that up and put that in there. But let me show you though, how I have made the roux and then the special technique that my mother taught me and how to get that really rich, good flavor. All right, so now we're gonna make the roux. I've got my cast iron skillet and I've got it on medium heat. And you wanna make sure that it gets nice and hot. So I've got my duck fat and my bacon grease, and I've got like 2/3 of a cup that I decided to use. And I want to make sure I get all that goodness in there. You wanna get your grease hot, not screaming hot, because I'm telling you, once you scorch it, you want to make sure that you do not scorch it, because if you do, you've got to start all over again. So you're going to need a whisk, a wooden spoon, and a glass of wine, because we're going to be here stirring for at least 45 minutes to an hour. So make sure you have a nice full glass. All right, so this is nice, getting nice and warm. I want this to get nice and melted. Now, you can use butter if you like. A lot of people do use butter. However, butter does not have a high smoke point, so it tends to burn sometimes. You can use just regular Crisco oil. I've been told though, don't use olive oil. I've never used olive oil for it at all. But any type of, fat or oil, lard, people use that sometimes too. So now my skillet feels nice and warm. I'm gonna take just some all-purpose flour and kind of whisk it in. So this is going to eventually turn into a nice, beautiful roux. And I'm adding a cup of flour to 2/3 cup of duck fat and bacon grease. You can do equal parts if you like, but I just decided to add a little bit more flour to mine to make it a little thicker, and that's all. But a lot of times I've seen people do, half and half. All right, so I'm gonna switch over now to my wooden spoon. And now this is where the stirring begins. Once this starts bubbling a little bit like that, you see how it's bubbling some? Then you want to turn down your heat to like a medium low. You do not want to burn this. You don't want to walk away. You want to constantly stir it because it burns easily. So basically what we're doing is toasting the flour and getting this nice and brown. If you ever start looking around or looking in your roux and you start seeing like streaks of brown or black, that means it's scorched. Toss it and you need to start all over again because you can't save that scorched flavor. It'll ruin your gumbo. And after you have spent all of that money on those ingredients, you will be pissed. So this is the color that I'm gonna sort of go for, even a little darker than this is just peanut butter. And the only way to get there is to stand here and stir and stir and stir so that it does not stick to the bottom and burn. All right, I've been stirring now for about 30 minutes. I added a little bit more flour to it, and you can see now it is really that peanut butter color. I'm gonna keep stirring it though because I want it to still get even a little darker, more of a milk chocolate, and it's getting there. So you're gonna wanna be tempted to turn up the heat. Don't do that. The longer you cook it, the darker it becomes and the more complex of a flavor that you will get. All right, this is a beautiful color right now. And I have now been stirring this constantly over medium-low heat for an hour and 9 minutes. And I've been drinking a little wine. So now what you can do is, now I'm gonna add the Holy Trinity. You guys know what the Holy Trinity is, of course. That is onions, celery, and bell pepper. So I can add that to the roux because the roux is now about where I wanted it to be. I'm gonna turn that heat down because I don't want this to scorch or burn. Because once something is scorched, y'all know it's no good. Whoops. So I've turned off the heat now. I've got that in there. And I'm gonna add this to my gumbo pot. Now, I made my own duck stock. Y'all know, I don't know why I've been fascinated with this whole duck, but I made my own duck stock. So I'm gonna go on and I froze it and I just, used the carcass of the duck. And I put them in like little individual containers like this so that I can use them. So I've got like 6 of them. I'm gonna use 3 right now and get those going. And in addition to the duck, I also have some chicken stock. So I'm gonna go in and pour that in there. Get this nice and heated. So I'm gonna go on and add my Holy Trinity to my homemade duck stock that I made. So while I'm sort of cooking the stock of this, I'm gonna go in and add maybe about, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 bay leaves into there. And in the gumbo pot so far, I've got my duck stock, my chicken stock, I've got the Holy Trinity, some garlic, some thyme, and the bay leaves. So I'm gonna go in and let that simmer. You wanna cover that up and put that on like low heat because you wanna make sure that you don't scorch this. If you scorch it, it's done. So I have several different proteins. I've got 2 different types of sausages that I'm going to use. I've got a smoked ham steak. I also have some chicken. I've got some shrimp and some scallops. What you want to do is you want to cook each protein separately. For example, sausage is nice and brown. I cooked it on like medium-high heat in about maybe a tablespoon or so of oil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the sausage. You can see that. Get a slotted spoon and add the sausage to my gumbo, right? But you see all of that grease in there, and we don't want the grease. So now you want to take this and pour it off. So you want to make sure that you pour off the grease, and I have my little grease container here, and get as much of the grease out that you can because you don't want your gumbo to be oily. Now, can you see all of those bits that are in there? That's flavor. So now we want to take like maybe a cup of water, and you want to take your wooden spoon and just kind of scrape the bottom of that and keep going around and around and whatever. You don't have to get every bit. I call this liquid gold. So now you take this and you add it into your gumbo pot. And you wash this out or wipe it out because this is cast iron skillet, so you don't want to use soap on this. But you rinse it out, and then you do the next sausage, and then you do your next protein. This step is crucial because this is how you're going to build that flavor that is unmistakably Sylv Mac gumbo. So I'm going to add a little of the Creole seasoning, and I'm going to add some black pepper. Now, if you like it spicy like I do, I would say add quite a bit of black pepper, because actually black pepper has some heat. And let's add a little bit of crushed red pepper. So it's kind of hard to give you like an exact recipe for gumbo, because gumbo to me is all about feel. It's about love. It's about, I don't know. I put so much in my gumbo, and it's just, I put my heart and soul into it. So you season it a little bit, and then I might add just a little bit, because this might be, the chicken stock is salty. I'm gonna add a little bit of the smoked salt. Again, you want to, you can use Lowry salt. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so now, while the second batch of sausage is cooking, I'm gonna go in and season up my chicken thighs. So I'm just gonna season those with some Creole seasoning. You can use Slap Your Mama, or you can use Zatarain, or you can use Tony Chapteray, whatever it is that you would like to use. I'm kind of partial to Zatarain, but I've used all of them. I've got Tony Chapteray, I've got Slap Your Mama, and all that in there too. So you want to be pretty generous though with your seasoning, because of course this is going to go into the pot. So it's going to be, some of that seasoning will come off in the pot. So you can be pretty generous with the seasoning. And while that's cooking, because we're going to cook this up next. All right. So the sausage looks like it's doing pretty good there. Sort of give this a stir and see what's going on here. And you see that we're slowly building. So now let's take the slotted spoon. Cast iron top. You see that there's quite a bit of grease in there. We don't want all of that grease. So you take your slotted spoon and you drain off as much grease as you can. Add them to your skillet. Make sure too that you use a slotted spoon, because you don't want all this grease. And you see that there's quite a bit of grease, and we're gonna pour that off. Use about a cup of water. And again, and see, this is the smoked sausage, so it's different from the andouille sausage. So it's giving you, yet another flavor profile. And then we're gonna take this liquid gold, as I call it, And you see that? That's flavor. Add that to your gumbo. Rinse this out, and then we'll cook the chicken in a second. Rinse it out. Dry it out. Add some oil. And for the chicken, you want to make sure that your skillet is really hot. So we just go on and put it in there into a nice hot skillet. And this is going to provide a lot of flavor. And again, what you want to do too is maybe add some more seasoning to that chicken. Like I said, you can be sort of heavy-handed with that. Because by adding it with it in the pan like that, it's going to get on the pan itself and just really cook and give you some really, really good flavor when you go to deglaze that pan. So you can see the chicken is about done, and it doesn't have to be completely done because it'll continue cooking in the pot. So I'm going to take it off and put it onto a cutting board because I'm going to slice it up. But meanwhile, of course, I have to do the process. We got to take it and pour the grease off. And you see all of that that's in there? That is going to be amazing flavor. Look at all that. Oh my goodness. So you take it. You can keep the flame on if you like, but this gives it a really dark, rich flavor. And of course, we're going to add this to our gumbo. Look at all that flavor. Rinse it off, and now it's time for the ham. I've cut it all up, put it into the gumbo. By the time I put that into the gumbo, it's time for the ham. And you can see the skillet is smoking. So you want to take the whole ham like this. And put it in there whole. And you want to leave it because you want it to get nice and brown on the other side and then turn it. And then again, once you take it out, we'll cut it up. While that's going, let's season the shrimp. So for my shrimp, I've got 2 pounds of shrimp, and they are the jumbo shrimp actually. Got a little shell in there. These are the 8 to 12 count, so they're pretty big. I like big shrimp, I don't like the little ones. So I'm gonna season those with some blackened seasoning. Again, this is gonna be more flavor that we're adding because it's a different spice. And you wanna be generous with it, of course. Just kind of mix it around in the bowl. And of course you can add some more seasoning once you put it onto the skillet so that you can get some of that flavor that hits the bottom of the skillet and kind of burns. That's what gives it that deep, rich flavor. As I said, gumbo is all about using what you got sometimes. So my husband made some chicken tenders in the air fryer. And I thought, what the heck, I'm gonna cut these up and throw those in there as well. Let's check. Oh yeah. So you see how dark that is? That's what you want, that burnt. You want that burntness because that sugar is caramelizing and making that red-eye gravy, and that is gonna put this over the top. So I'm gonna take it off. Put it on the cutting board. Pour off the grease so that it's not greasy. It's not a lot of grease there, but we don't want any. And now, let's get that red eye gravy. Oh yeah, you see that dark color. Yeah, baby. This is just marvelous. You want to scrape that bottom, get all those bits. I'm going to show you what red eye gravy looks like. Now, this is so good too if you want grits and red eye gravy. You make your ham and then you do this, and this is red eye gravy. And we're gonna pour that into the gumbo. And what's next? We gotta clean this out, and then it's time to blacken the shrimp. Washed it. I'm gonna wipe it clean. Add a little oil. Now, for the shrimp, you do, ooch. For the shrimp, you do want to make sure that the pan is screaming hot and coat it with oil. Still gonna be pretty hot, so make sure that you have your pot holder, because like I just burned my hand. All right, and once this gets up to nice hot temperature, because I've got it again on medium high, then we're just gonna go in and add the shrimp and blacken those. We're not gonna cook them fully. So that's why I want it really screaming hot, because we're gonna cook them really quickly and then throw them in here. And after that, then we would do the scallops and then the okra. I can see a little bit of smoke coming up. So now it's time to add, you can go on and add the shrimp, if you wanna hear that sizzle. Now, I am going to still add a little bit more, because then that gets to the bottom of the pan and helps to add flavor when we deglaze the pan. And while that is going, I'm going to go on and cut up the ham. One of the things that I like to do is I like to include that ham bone that's in the middle, because that's flavor. And my dad likes it because he likes to eat the marrow from that. I think it's kind of gross, but you know, it is what it is. So the shrimp are almost done, but not really. Like you can see, this one, let me see if I can show you. You see it's not really quite done. It's still opaque. And that's fine. I have more shrimp in the refrigerator, and I might add some more to this, but we'll see. So now, let's take our slotted spoon and add our big jumbo shrimp. I like the big shrimp. I don't like the little ones. And of course, because they're going into the pot, they are going to continue to simmer. Now, I only put 2 pounds of shrimp in here, but I'm thinking, and there's not a lot of oil on here, so let me deglaze the pan. get that. So I'm going to season the scallops with some Old Bay. Get the skillet, you know, screaming hot again. You want to try to dry your scallops too as much as possible because scallops hold a lot of water. So sort of dry them as much as you can, but you'll see a lot of water will be released in the pan. They're also very porous, so if we were not making this for the gumbo, I would not season them this heavily because they absorb a lot of flavor. So once again, once it starts smoking a little bit, then it's ready. And it's smoking now. Add a little bit more oil. Had to add the exhaust fan so that my smoke detector will not go off, but it'll go off in a minute. Alright, so you let that cook a little bit. This is that ham piece that I was talking about. It's the little ham bone. It's got a little marrow in there, and anytime you have bones, that's flavor. So I'm going to add that. There's a little piece of ham here. And so now I'm going to add the ham. My husband will probably, if I know him, suck that bone. All right, so now let's check on the scallops. And again, I want to add a little more flavor so that some of that seasoning gets down into the pan so that when you deglaze it, it helps with flavor. All right, so now we can go on and probably add these scallops because of course they are going to continue to cook. I've got you can see my gumbo, just slowly building it. And get some of that seasoning and seafood flavor type stuff. Throw this liquid gold into our gumbo. Rinse it out, and now it's time for the okra. Coming down the stretch. Wipe it out. Put it on medium high. A little oil. Once it starts smoking a little bit, then you will add the okra. You want to make sure too that the oil is all over the bottom of the pan. Now I am using grapeseed. Oops. I am using grapeseed oil because it has a very high smoking point. So do not use butter. Once that starts smoking just a little bit, then we will be ready to go. Meanwhile, let's take a look and see how we're building this seafood gumbo. Oh my goodness. Okay, I see it smoking just a little bit, so it's now ready for the slimy okra. Okay, with the okra, I'm gonna put a little bit of slap yo mama on there. Give it some flavor. Add the okra, and there wasn't a lot of oil in there. And do what? Deglaze the pan. That I only put like a half a cup. And add that into the mix. And last but not least, it's time to add the lobster. So I'm just gonna drop them in because they're actually already cooked. And because they're in the shell, that's gonna give it lots of flavor too. And I ended up getting a pound. And now let's give it a stir. And I don't know, what do you guys think? I think that looks like some amazing seafood, sausage, and chicken gumbo. I'll let it sit overnight and serve it over some rice.